Summer of 1993, Galveston Island was the place to be. The clubs were packed, the beaches were packed, there was plenty of things to do, and the music scene was really, really happening, and little did I know I was fixing to stumble right into the middle of it. That particular summer, the Strand was happening. It was full of nightclubs with live music and bands every night. There was a famous Balinese also, which we always wanted to play in, and it was great. There was no paid to park on the seawall or anything. People were partying, drinking beer, having a good time on the beach. It was just a really good time back in '93 and a very special time on Galveston Island. The tourism was at an all-time high in Galveston at this time. People were just flocking there. The weather was beautiful. It was sunny. The beaches were nice. No signs of pollution or any signs of a hurricane anywhere in sight. That summer, I met a guitar player named Greg Pierrat. Greg was blowing up everywhere with his band Why Ask Why, named after a Budweiser commercial, I believe. Why Ask Why came straight out of Pasadena, Texas. Was playing the clubs there. Before you knew it, they were all over Houston, Harris County, and then they were all over Galveston County. Everywhere that Why Ask Why went, they were hooking other local musicians together. That was part of their deal. They ran their whole show like a big open mic everywhere they went, and they were just hooking up all kinds of people. And if you were looking for something to do and the place to be and where it was happening, Why Ask Why shows were the place to be. Greg was like the nucleus of the whole thing. He was hooking up everybody left and right, all kinds of directions, making all kinds of music deals. It was through Greg that I met Bob Murphy. Bob Murphy was looking to play in a band, and there was me, and Greg was looking for a side project. And what happened was we just kind of got up a couple times at some Why Ask Why shows and just did a set on the fly. And everybody seemed to really dig what we were doing. We were just doing a bunch of cover songs, and we'd never really played together ever before, but it seemed to really be a hit. It wasn't long after one night at a place called the Zoo on the Strand that we were calling each other on the telephone and seeing when we could get together and play. And all we needed to do was find a place to practice. And so that's when I had a genius idea. I was building a jam hall at the time, so I decided, well, hey, let's practice at my place. Summer of '93, I was living in Alvin, Texas in a small house on Coon Street. I had just gotten married, and I finished up college, but was still using the college for their recording studio. I changed my major to geology just so I could use the recording studio, actually. And all this time I was building a jam hall at my place behind the house, and what I thought was going to take me a week to build ended up taking 2 years. So we just practiced right there in the living room, and actually got away with it, no installation and everything, because it was a happy sound. We were doing a happy 70s classic rock and roll. Even the cops would sit outside, and we thought we were too loud, and they just wanted to listen. While Greg had all the Houston and South Houston circuit booked up, Bob had been BOI, born on the island, and went to Galveston Ball High. Everybody knew Bob, everybody loved Bob, and Bob was real familiar with all the clubs. He had been playing all the clubs on Galveston Island his whole life. And he was our ticket right into the Strand, and he'd always dreamed of playing the famous Balinese Ballroom. Elvis played there, Frank Sinatra played there, and ZZ Top actually wrote a song and played the Balinese. So we had our eye set on that prize. Bob always said, I'm talking to the Balinese. Hey, next week we may have the Balinese. And we were always looking forward to playing the Balinese, but then we had another offer in Galveston, and we were just booking and packing every place on the Strand you can imagine. Everywhere that Bob was booking us, we were just getting tremendous response and filling places, often making 2-3 times as much out of our tip jar as we did the gig. Anyway, with me and Greg, the band seemed unstoppable as a three-piece, and we were making a ton of money and just having a blast. And then we got an offer to play a headline at the Mardi Gras, and everything was... I'll never forget that day as long as I live. Greg came knocking at the front door. He looked at me, he was crying. Greg was not the kind of guy to cry, and I looked at him and said, what's wrong? He said, Bob's been shot. And I said, what do you mean? And he told me Bob had been shot at work, and we quickly went to the hospital in Galveston, and there was his wife. And well, when he came to, the first thing he looked up and said to us, "Hey, what happened? Are we still going to play the gig?" And we said, "Well, yeah, of course we're going to play the gig." Truth be told, we didn't know if we'd make it or not, but Bob made a tremendous comeback, and we played that gig, and it's probably the proudest moment I've ever seen him. I cried that day. Years later at MadFest, the band had a reunion, and Bob, by surprise, years ago, he said that's it. After that happened to him, he wasn't going to play anymore. Well, he put together a new band called Wise Guy, and he asked me to come and be the drummer for Wise Guy, and then, I'll be damned, here we took off again, and we're playing all the Galveston scene again. And well, the funny thing about it, how that all happened, is he looked up at me that evening at MadFest and said, "Hey, Matt, yeah, I've been talking to the Balinese." Only the Balinese ballroom had been completely blown to smithereens in the Hurricane Ike, and all that remains there today is a historical marker. I never knew at the time, back then, how much that Bob Murphy would affect my life in the future, and I really do miss him a whole lot.
Here. This next song's a real scream. This song is called Kill Me or Kill Me.
In 1994 and 95, I was in a band that literally took off with a big bang, Box of Rocks. I had finished building my jam hall behind my house in Alvin, and I got together with old friend Sean Bummel, Craig Tyler, and Mark Bigpen. And in the beginning, we had an idea, how are we going to get people to come out and see our band? So then we started coming up with gimmicks. We already had the drum cage, a fog machine, and lights, and several other gizmos, wireless guitars. And we had a good sound going, so we just needed something a little extra. So I began really thinking hard on what kind of gimmick this band could use to take off. And it occurred to me, well, what do people like? They like to see stuff blow up. How about building a bomb? And the rest of the guys were like, "Matt, you're crazy." And well, that's exactly what we did. We started blowing stuff up at every show using real gunpowder in cans. I won't describe how I made them for safety reasons. You just can't get away with this kind of stuff anymore in clubs these days since 9/11 and the Great White Incident. But back in '94, it seemed like we were attracting attention, and people were packing in and say, "Hey, one of these boys might just go up in a ball of flame tonight. Let's go check out Box of Rocks." Truth be told, nowadays, it was actually very, very dangerous. We really didn't know at the time how dangerous it was, but we were using black powder, and a lot of it. It wasn't uncommon to buy 3 or 4 pounds of gunpowder, which these days, try walking in a gun shop anywhere and saying, "I want 4 pounds of gunpowder." That's simply not going to happen. And everywhere we went, man, we were just blowing stuff up, and the band was blowing up at the same time. We were getting booked all over the place, and the club that wouldn't let us blow things up, well, we just used a strobe light with a bomb sound behind it through the fog. Pretty much made the same effect as if something blew up in the club. We're actually really lucky that during the time that we did this, that nobody ever did get hurt or killed or we ever burned anything down. There certainly was a really good chance of it. In the beginning, we used a plexiglass in front of the drum cage to protect me from the flames because they were so close, but this proved to be a hassle to move around after a while, so we just blew that off. And the outdoor shows, we'd load more gunpowder and the flames would be higher. The more powder, the higher the flames. The detonator was a box I built with 4 switches so I controlled the blast. After a while, we picked up John Candido again as our bass player, and we became a 5-piece band toward the end, and we were just blowing up everything. We got the attention of Houston Music News and actually made the cover on Ozzy's arm. Ozzy also was in the same edition, and that really set the band into motion. The place we played the most was called Scooter's Ice House. It's still there in Pearland, Texas. They just loved us in there, and we practically almost were a house band. We were in there like every weekend, sometimes doing 2 or 3 shows a weekend. One thing I remember is it was incredibly hot because most of the places we played didn't have AC or were outside, combined with the robbing all the oxygen out of the air. And even the audience said you could definitely feel that blast out there. It definitely warmed the place up. Of course, what would make sense is once you start with one little bomb, you need bigger bombs. So we were always trying to outdo ourselves, and every show would be more and more of a pyrotechnic display. Toward the end, got insane. We had black cats going off, sometimes skyrockets in the outdoor shows, and Roman candles sticking out of the cymbal stands. It was just nuts. Most places you could smell the gunpowder all the way out in the parking lot we played. But crazy as it was, the more stuff we blew up or set on fire, the more surprises we had for our audience, the more they just loved us, man. And everywhere we went, we just kept on blowing up more and more stuff. Every time we could get away with something new, we did. And then we also had an acoustic art show that was pretty cool. There's absolutely no way I will ever those years playing with Box of Rocks, and this band stayed strong for like 18 years after that with different lineups, and I was very proud to be a member of it. I was an original member of the first Box of Rocks, and 18 years later I became a member again. Okay, this is Hell Forever, take 1. Hell. In 1996, I moved to Dallas, Texas, chasing the music scene that was down in Deep Ellum and Lower Greenville circuit. At that time, I met 2 guys. I was working at the Guitar Center, and I said, "Can I help you guys find something?" And they said, "Yeah, if you know where to find a drummer." They invited me to audition at their studios off Miller Road, right outside of Garland, Texas. These guys had a whole warehouse full of equipment, just a wall of Marshalls, even a trampoline was built into the stage. Just an incredible amount of equipment. It was just louder than you can ever imagine. The place looked like something, I swear to God, right out of the Lost Boys or something. Just like a big vampire thing. We practiced in the middle of the night, usually from like 1 to 4 a.m. In the beginning, we called ourselves Gang Bang. The style of the music was just very, very heavy, as heavy as we could possibly get it. Later on, we changed the name to The Kind, and as we had members come in and out, we moved into a kind of direction, but kind of the same. Marilyn Manson at the time was real, so we were kind of going for the dark image thing again, the whole vampire appeal. Both of the other guys in the band, Morgan and Tom, were just entrepreneurs. These guys just had a way of always making money, and they seek to become successful, and actually today both of them are. Tom's somewhere out in Hollywood making movies, and Morg has his own software company. This band had the pleasure of playing in 2 very well-known recording studios. One, the famous Dallas Sound Labs up at Studios Los Colinas, and the other one these days is called The Kitchen, where we recorded the second CD. Probably the only CD I've ever played on that does have a parental advisory on the front of it. It seemed like in this group we were always searching for bass players. Eventually we found a guy named Joey Castile who took part of the bass, and together with him we recorded that second CD. The Kind was definitely one of the most interesting bands I've ever been in, and certainly one of the heaviest heavy metal bands I've ever worked with, for sure. I've definitely got to say The Kind is probably one of the loudest bands I've ever played for. Around the same time period, 1996 or so, in Dallas, I followed an ad out of the Green Sheet for a band looking for a drummer, and that's when I met Kevin Cozzo and his band. He had Poison Whiskey, and this band was a lot of fun. This band just primarily did covers, and we were a dance band, and everywhere we went and played, that was our goal, was to get people to get up and dance. We all lived in different sections of Dallas. We'd get together over at our bass player Colin's house in Oak Cliff, Texas, to practice. Every member of this band was definitely different. We were all different but the same. We all had different likes, different interests, and different hobbies. But we did become very, very close friends. We got to play a lot of obscure songs that other bands don't play. We did the Monsters, and we did Benny and the Jets. I Think I Can Dance. Later on, Rochelle, my wife at the time, joined the band. It was the second band I was in. Most of the shows we did with this band were private events and weddings and stuff like that. But we always had to get where we went. The very first gig this band did, I'll never forget, because I got the living crap beat out of me by the cops. The case of mistaken identity. This guy had robbed a place next door, and his name was Matt, and the cops came in the front door and they said, "Where's Matt?" And of course, everybody pointed at me. Of course, I knew, I didn't know what was going on, but anyway, that's one of the times I care to forget. The one thing that was cool about Poison Whiskey is we always sounded really well, because we had a very good mix in the PA all the time, and we played at moderate volumes. We didn't play super loud most of the time, because most of the events we were doing, like I said, were corporate parties and weddings and stuff like that, so there was really no reason to be super loud. Also with this band, there wasn't a real problem with egos or anything like that at all, because from the go we agreed that we weren't really trying to get anywhere. We weren't trying to get signed. We weren't trying to get a good label. We weren't trying to do anything other than just play some good gigs and make a few bucks. One thing that was really cool about Poison as well is our selection of songs that we chose to play. We played stuff that simply no other band would ever even attempt. We did stuff like ELO songs, Evil Woman. We also did a lot of songs like Neil Sedaka and other tunes that other bands, you just never hear them anymore. Like I said before, the main objective of Poison Whiskey was to have fun. We did practice a couple times a week to make sure, because our songs were so oddball and so different, that we wanted to make sure that we played them right. Even though our songs mostly were cornball or something you wouldn't expect us to play, you'd be surprised at the amount of people that love to dance to them. It was really through Poison Whiskey that I started gaining a lot of contacts in Dallas, Texas, and started getting hooked into the music scene, started meeting a bunch of musicians and going to a lot of parties and finding out what Dallas, Texas was really all about. The one thing that was true about Poison Whiskey is I look forward to going to practice every time. I look forward to every single gig we did because there was just a really good vibe about the whole band and about everything that we were doing was it just felt just natural. I mean, it was just everybody just wanted to play and have a good time, and that was the whole point of the band. And we sure did have a good time doing it, and I really miss those days.